Hello friends, welcome to EPG Pashala. I am Professor C.P. Vashisht from the Department of Library and Information Science in New Delhi. I retired from there in 2000. From today, we are going to talk on the module Pioneers of Library Movement from paper Public Libraries. To study the initiatives taken by library enthusiasts in Bengal to eradicate illiteracy and arouse interest in reading so as to make good citizens and members of an informed society. This is only a select profile of library pioneers from Bengal. There are many others who could rightfully be included in this module, but the limitation of space does not permit us to include them. Interested readers are advised to look into the publications of Bengal Library Association to have inclusive picture of library pioneers from West Bengal and adjoining areas. Rabindranath Tagore, 1861–1941. A renowned Bengali poet and Nobel laureate, Rabindranath was elected as the first president of All Bengal Library Association, later renamed as Bengal Library Association in 1925. He was one of the pioneers of education as well as Indian library movement. Two of his writings, Library and Libraries Mukhya Kartabya, that is main duties of public library, was very much inspired the workers and organizers of library movement in Vishwabharati library at Shantiniketan and Chilantika, the mobile library in the adjacent rural areas, but developed on his inspiration and advice. He was very much aware of the rural life. He invested the entire amount he received from Nobel Prize for the building up cooperative bank for the villagers at Salaidaha. He wanted to remove the miserable condition of the villages. He felt that library is the only panacea against these hindrances to overcome, and it would be a strong support to his rural reconstruction project. Thus, he opened a new horizon of library services in introducing the library in order to support his rural reconstruction activities at Shantiniketan 1925 with a basic collection of 200 books. In the year 1927, Satish Chandra Mukhopadhyay donated 70,000 books for Chalantika Library, became a burning example of mobile library services in India for building up a new society with quality for life of rural people. During the year 1939, as many as 2,793 books were circulated. He felt that traditional library services would not be helpful in rural areas to achieve his goal, as villagers were not aware of the traditional library services and their advantages. It would be the task of the library itself to go to villages to serve them with the required books, documents, films, charts, and information. Such a type of library of a mobile nature would be effective in achieving the goal. With this view in object, Tagore initiated Chalantika Rural Library Service at Sriniketan. It was a revolutionary idea of mobile library service in the society with a message of change, progress, and upliftment of rural life in India. Tagore implemented Ranganathan's 5 laws of library science through the instrument of Chalantika library service. Books were supplied to villages through the branches of sub-branches centers around the year. From its main collection at Sriniketan, the villagers were issued the books of their interest for a certain period. K. Masadullah, born 1890, died in 1949. Khalifa Muhammad Asadullah was born on 6th August 1890 in Lahore, now in Pakistan. He was educated at Islamia School and graduated in 1913 from the Foreman Christian College, Lahore. He was appointed as the first graduate librarian of the Government College, Lahore on 16th November 1913 on a pay of rupees 50 per month. In 1915, Asa Don Dickinson, a famous library expert from Pennsylvania University, came to Lahore on being invited by Punjab University. Appearance of Dickinson on the library scene acted as a great impetus to Asadullah's desire to become a librarian in those days when librarianship in this country was rated as a very low professional occupation with little prospects, particularly for a young, ambitious graduate with excellent quality of head and heart that Asadullah possessed. Dickinson, one of the early library experts from America, was a person of great energy and vision. His assignment was to organize the reputed Punjab University Library, Lahore, which was of modest size at that time. He took up his work with Punjab University with great enthusiasm and foresight. Simultaneously, he mooted a proposal to train young librarians in modern methods of librarianship, not only with a view to carry forward the sustaining the scientific management of the Punjab University Library that he initiated, but also to instituting a permanent program of education and training Indian librarians in modern methods of library work. He wrote a book entitled Primer of Librarianship for the benefit of the young enthusiastic students he attracted around him and inspired these young men with pioneering zeal and love for the hitherto unrecognized profession of modern librarianship in this country. This event is a major event in the history of modern library movement in India, and K. Masudullah was undoubtedly its finest product. In 1921, when the government of India wanted an expert librarian to organize the Imperial Secret Library at Delhi with a summer camp office at Shimla, in an all India selection, the choice fell on K. Masudullah. As librarian of the Imperial Secret Library, he improved upon his own past records of unrivaled efficiency and organizing ability. When the post of librarian of the Imperial Library of Calcutta, the highest post of librarian at librarianship in India can offer till this date, fell vacant in 1929, the choice again fell on K. Masudullah. As usual, he took up his assignment with great enthusiasm and served with distinction in this post till the partition of India in August 1947. Whereupon he opted for Pakistan, and after attaining the certain work, including library entrusted to him by the new government of Pakistan, left India for Pakistan early in 1948. Asadullah's departure from the Indian library scene, in which he acted for over 30 years as the strongest stabilizing force in a very real sense, marked the end of an era in the library movement in this subcontinent. He was a man of a strong conviction and deep attachment. His involvement in the work of the Imperial Library Calcutta and in the affairs of Indian Library Association was too deep for any expression. The inspiration and guidance that K. Masudullah got from Asa Don Dickinson developed three distinct major traits in him. These found expression in the three different spheres of professional activities that he performed with great devotion and distinction. First was his administrative acumen that found its full play in the stewardship of the premier library in the country, which is now known as National Library of India. Number two, his ability to inspire and train selected young men in the library work that admirably manifested itself in the excellent course of library education that he conducted from 1935 to 1944 at the Imperial Library, Calcutta. Number three, his great organizing ability that found expression in his work as organizer of All India Library Conferences and as the founder secretary of Indian Library Association since 1933. K. Masudullah achieved many honors for his devoted services of considerable merit. In 1929, he appeared in examination conducted by Library Association of Great Britain and was soon after admitted to the Fellowship of the Library Association, that is FLA. In 1935, he was awarded title of Khan Bahadur by the government of the day. He held the highest office of national librarian in this country and conducted himself always with dignity and decorum appropriate to the position. He won the heart and admiration of many librarians and man of learning and letters. Late Ratan Chand Manchanda, librarian Haley College, Lahore, wrote about him after attending the first All India Library Conference held at Calcutta in September 1933 as follows. The last but not the least impression I have brought back from the conference is my association with that enthusiast for the spread of library movement in India, Mr. Sadullah, librarian, Imperial Library, Calcutta. The success of the conference was due to his perseverance and hard work spread over so many months. Even if I suppose for a moment that I have gained nothing else at the conference by coming into touch with a sincere and devoted personality like K. Sadullah was one of the greatest experiences of my life. Kumar Munir Devarai Mahashay, born 1873, died 1945. Kumar Munir Devarai Mahashay was born in 1873 in a rich Jamindar family, reputed for its munificence and progressive outlook, and better known as Bansberia Raj family in the township of Bansberia in the district of Hooghly in Bengal, now in West Bengal. The family residence is an imposing mansion looking like a palace surrounded by well-laid masonry culvert, fed by the water of Ganges flowing close by. Within the compound of mansion is a famous Hanseswari temple and another Bengal-style temple as typified by the Mahabalipuram Rath associated with Draupadi, stand as a place of pilgrimage adding to the glory of the Raj family that maintains them. Being the beneficiary of very good upbringing and education, the young Munir Devarai, interested in cultural and social services, he soon became acquainted with the library movement initiated by Maharaja Syajirao Gaikwad III of Baroda estate. This fired his imagination and began drawing him closer and closer to the library movement, till he got fully submerged in it. Since the very beginning of the second quarter of 20th century, when he founded Hooghly District Library Association, that is 1925, and served as its president till his death in 1945, he lived a life fully possessed with the thoughts of library development in India. Munir Rai established an excellent public library in his hometown with his family resources and began propagating the gospel of library movement all around. As a member of the Bengal Legislative Council, he introduced a library bill in Council 1932, which was never passed. This was the first library bill ever brought before a legislature in India. The same year, he moved a cut motion in the council to press for allocation of public fund for training of librarians. It was obvious that under the then prevailing conditions, he had little chance of success. But that did not deter him to press forward to register a popular support, though the authorities, for their own reason, were apathetic to the library movement, which became a suspect like any other program of progressive mass movement in India. The insincerity and substance of Kumar Munir Devarai Mahashay purpose and efforts was evident from the hollowness of the cryptic reply that the then Education Secretary Mr. A.R. Wilkinson gave in the council with regard to his cut motion referred to above. I gather that Mr. Kumar Munir Devarai, also wants government to spend money on opening classes for the training of librarians. So far as I am aware, there is very little demand for the public for these classes, but the Imperial Library, Calcutta does train librarians, and certain amount of training is given in the training colleges for secondary school teachers. This, I am afraid, does not satisfy the requirements of Rai Mahashay, but it is not a matter in which he can expect government to anticipate the demand. One cannot help admiring Rai Mahashay's enthusiasm for his subject and the persistence with which he tries to instill into the others Rai Mahasaya was a genuine crusader, and as such, he would not be he would not let go things because somebody in authority might squash his ideas. Getting the library bill passed against government opposition was beyond his reach in those days, but to initiate a course of library training for which there was a real demand, though the official version indicated otherwise, could be tried by an enthusiast and resourceful man like him. Soon after, in June 1933, he organized at his own expenses the first library training classes under the auspices of the Hooghly District Library Association at Vansberia Public Library. For this work, he enlisted the support of no less an authority than Mr. K. M. Kasadullah, Librarian, Imperial Library, Calcutta, who volunteered his services as honorary supervisor of the training course. He also availed of the expert services of Mr. P.C. Bose, the then promising young graduate librarian, later librarian of the library in charge of the Department of Library Science, Calcutta University, who had just completed his library training at Lahore and Baroda. This training course served as the precursor of the training course opened later under the Rai Mahasaya's guidance by the Bengal Library Association. The All Bengal Library Association came into being in December 1925 with poet Rabindranath Tagore as president, Kumar Munindeva Rai Mahasaya as one of the vice president, and Sushil Kumar Ghosh as secretary. Within few years, it changed its name to Bangiya Granthalaya Parishad and soon slipped into the state of inactivity. Kumar Munindeva Rai Mahasaya revived the association and christened it as Bengal Library Association in 1933, and ever since till his death in 1945, with a small break of about 2 years, he remained its president and prime mover force. This transparent, pervasive sincerity, integrity, and dedication, besides enlisting the support of the eminent educationist and elite of Bengal, soon attracted young enthusiasts and devoted to co-workers like T.C. Tinkori Datta, S.K. Ghosh, Nihar Ranjan Ray, P.C. Bose, B.N. Banerjee, and others. Within a brief period of, he could count among his young comrades quite a few qualified librarians who obtained highest training in librarianship in the UK and India. He began writing about library topics in periodicals. The Bengal Library Association issued 2 books in Bengali written by him on libraries and librarians in India and abroad. His interest in the Indian library movement gradually developed, so much so that he wholeheartedly accepted promotion of the movement as his life mission. Soon Kumar Munindeva Rai became known all over the country for his devoted services to the cause of library movement. The All India Public Libraries Association at Vijayawada, now Vijayawada, elected him as a member on the editorial board of the Indian Library Journal. He went to Madras to participate in the proceedings of the All India Public Library Conference held there in 1927. He initiated the next session of the conference and organized it Calcutta in 1928. Soon he developed library contact with all key library personnel and promoters of the library movement in different parts of the country. Mr. Khalifa Muhammad Asadullah, librarian of Imperial Library, Calcutta, became his choice close local friend and guide soon after he entered his field of work of love. He and Mr. Asadullah were the principal organizers of the first All India Library Conference held at Calcutta in September 1933. It It was very impressive, very successful conference, as a result of which the Indian Library Association was born. Kumar Munindev Rai Mahashay was elected as one of the vice president of this National Library Association, while K.M. Asadullah was elected as the secretary. In 1934, Rai Mahashay was invited by All India Public Library Association, Bejwada, to preside over its conference at Madras. His presidential address of this performance on this occasion conclusively proved that he was a person of outstanding wisdom and ability among leaders of all India standing in library field. He attended the second All India Library Conference held at Lucknow in April 1935. Soon after this, he proceeded abroad on the invitation to represent All Indian Library Association and All India Public Library Association Bejwada at the Second International Congress of Librarians at Bibliography in Spain during 19 to 31st May 1935. According to the reports, the only Indian representative, Kumar Munindev Rai Mahashay, MLC, a cordial welcome on the opening day, and he was the first speaker to speak on the library movement in India, which received high encomium from different quarters. The National Bibliotheca of Paris and Rome, visited by the Kumar, accorded him cordial reception. The Pope also gave him a special audience. Rai Mahashay toured extensively other European countries to observe and study the library systems operating there. He gave an excellent account of himself abroad and on his return, and fully devoted himself to serve the cause of the library movement in India with renewed vigor and dedication. Among the non-professional promoters of the Indian modern library movement in India, Kumar Munindev Rai Mahashay will always be remembered with deep affection and admiration for his noble contributions. Bihar Library Association, constituted in 1936, convened the first Bihar Library Conference at Gaya in 1937. Rai Mahashay presided over the conference and advised the association on their future programs, including a scheme of library development in the province that was under preparation at that time. Advantage of this mature council, selfless service, and munificence in the cause of the library movement used to be availed of by promoters of the library movement and all over the country. In 1938, at an advanced age of 64, Rai Mahashay decided to visit Europe for second time to study the library system in countries. There was once again, this time he spent about 6 months in England, Ireland, and countries in the continent. Birmingham Gazette of 5th November 1938 noticed this visit as follows: all the way from India to study library methods in country has come Mahashay, member of one of the most ancient families of Bengal, enlightened, 64 years old, a mayor of Bansberia. First he had been to library conference where he had given a lecture. He had gone on the Cambridge and Oxford where he had been shown over the libraries and admired them. In 1944, Rai Mahashay was in failing health, but on the 25th December that year, he presented himself at Burdwan to preside over the 4th Bengal Library Conference, there in spite of the advice of his physician not to go. Before he could rise to deliver his presidential address, he collapsed and had to be removed from the dais. Thereafter, his health broke down rapidly. Even when he was in his sick bed, he used to hold meetings of the Executive Committee, Council of the Bengal Library Association in his Calcutta residence in Rani Shankari Lane frequently, and everybody knew that a visit to his house on any occasion, on any account, was sure to be rewarded with a warm reception and sumptuous treat of choice delicacies in which Bengal Jamindars used to specialize. The Bengal Library Association planned to celebrate his 72nd birth anniversary in a befitting manner, but his illness stood in the way of such a celebration, and ultimately in August 1945, the association held a solemn function on his account at his residence, where he lay seriously ill. Tinkuri Datta, born 1898 and died in 1963. Tinkuri Datta was an engineer by profession, but dedicated his entire life for the cause of library movement in Bengal and for Bengal Library Association. He served as a General Secretary, Vice President, and President. He took active interest in the construction of the library building of the association and its various publications. He worked hard for the spread of library movement in Bengal. He kept close relationship with the public libraries functioning in rural areas. He had intimate relations with Dr. S. R. Ranganathan. He regularly attended the All India Library Conferences of Indian Library Association and also served as its treasurer of Indian Library Association. Sushil Kumar Ghosh, 1894-1964. Though Sushil Kumar Ghosh was not a librarian by profession, he devoted his life for library movement in Bengal. Addressing the Belgaum session of Indian National Congress in 1924, he stressed the need of social education for spreading political consciousness among the masses and argued that libraries would be the best media for accomplishing this task. He proposed setting up of library association in each province for organizing library movement. The very next year, All Bengal Library Association, later renamed as Bengal Library Association, was set up, and Sushil Kumar Ghosh was elected as the first General Secretary of that association. In the said capacity, he toured different districts of undivided Bengal and dedicated himself in developing public library in favor of library services and library movement. He was also associated with Indian Library Association set up in 1933. He also published a book entitled Library Andolan of Shiksha Vistar in Bengali language. Gyan Ranjan Ray, born 1903, died 1981. Born in Mymensingh in 1903, Niharanjan Ray had early education in the national school where his father was a teacher. He had his higher education in Calcutta University, from where he studied ancient Indian history and culture and earned his MA. In 1926, that very year, he was awarded Merlanli Gold Medal for his political history of northern India, AD 600 to 900. During 1927 and 1933, he spent some time in Burma with his teacher, Professor Beni Madhav Barua, and did his research on Burmese temple architecture. Nyanran Ray was a well-known educationist, a specialist in Tagore literature. He was librarian and head of the Department of Library Science in the Calcutta University. He was very closely associated with Bengal Library Association and served as its General Secretary, Vice President, and President during different terms of office. He also served as Director of Librarianship Training Course of Bengal Library Association and also the editor of the Bengal Library Directory. Several times he presided over Bengal Library Association conferences. He was President of Indian Library Association during 1960-1964. He was Chairman of Raja Raman Roy Library Foundation and Director of the National Library, Calcutta. He was awarded Padma Bhushan by the Government of India for his outstanding contributions. Pani Bhushan Roy, born 1918, died 1993. An organizing leader of library movement in Bengal and a well-known personality in the country, Pani Bhushan Roy served as the librarian of Commercial Library, Government of India, for a long time. Besides, he was also associated with LIS Education, Yadavpur University, Bengal Library Association, and NICE. He served in different capacities in both Bengal Library Association and ISLIC. He was editor of ISLIC Bulletin for quite some years. He was member of the drafting committee of the West Bengal Public Libraries Bill and member of the State Library Council. He tirelessly worked for extension of public library services in rural areas of West Bengal, mobilizing public opinion in favor of Public Libraries Bill, modernization of LIS education, maintaining statistics about activities of public libraries, formulating standards for public library buildings, and developing inter-library cooperation. Prabir Roy Chaudhary, born 1933, died 2007. Born in 1933, Prabir Roy Chaudhary remained associated with mass movement in West Bengal since his student days. He was student leader of Bangavasi College, Calcutta. Later, he became secretary and president of the West Bengal State Committee of Students Federation of India. He did his certificate course in library science conducted by Bengal Library Association 1956. He took keen interest in the affairs of Bengal Library Association. He joined the Jadavpur University Library in 1957 as a cataloger. In 1966, he did his MLib Science from the University of Delhi with first class first division. He was awarded Professor A. Dasgupta Gold Medal for the achievement. Thereafter, he joined the Department of Library and Information Science of Jadavpur University as a full-time teacher, where he rose to the position of Professor of Library and Information Science. He played leading role in the enactment of West Bengal Public Libraries Law. He served the Bengal Library Association in almost all positions. He was also associated with ISLIC and Indian Library Association. He took active interest in the organization of book fairs in different parts of West Bengal. He was honored with fellowship of Raja Ram Roy Library Foundation and Kaula Award for his contributions to library movement in the country. This module reveals the book-mindedness of our leaders of yesteryears of Bengal. It takes us close to their thinking and lines of action for the welfare of the masses. It brings to our knowledge the deep involvement of pioneers like Gurudev Rabindranath Tagore, founder of Bengal Library Association, and author of Library and Libraries Mukhi Kartabya, K. Masadullah, direct student of Asa Don Dickinson at Punjab University, Lahore, and librarian of Imperial Library, Calcutta, and General Secretary of Indian Library Association for a long time, Kumar Munindev Rai Mahashay, who introduced first library bill in Bengal legislation, Bengal Legislature Council, and introduced library training course under the auspices of Hooghly District Library Association. Tinkori Datta, an engineer by profession, but a known figure in library movement in India in general and West Bengal in particular. Sushil Kumar Ghosh, a non-librarian who devoted his entire life to library movement in Bengal. Nihar Ranjan Ray, Director of National Library, Kolkata, and Chairman Raja Raman Roy Library Foundation. Fani Bhushan Roy, a very known figure in ISLIC and Bengal Library Association, and Prabir Roy Chaudhary, who worked tirelessly for the enactment of public library legislation as West Bengal. Thank you.